get fine details as I'm going in. You need to get very close, get a few mil away from the canvas, and then go back for a wider spray.
Hi, I'm Warwick from Harder and Steenbeck, and I'm really pleased once again to introduce to you today my great friend and airbrush artist, Giorgio Uccellini. Now wait a second, if you're a modeler or a miniature painter, don't go away, because what I want you to try and consider while you watch this is whether you could follow this painting process and do something similar and unlock a whole new creative avenue for yourself. I believe you can, because I know the skills that it takes to paint small-scale models and miniatures, and I believe that this is something that you could be very successful in and enjoy your creativity along a whole nother avenue. The subject is a jazz trumpet player who's very, very dear to me. It's my favorite jazz trumpet player of all time. And those of you who know anything about jazz will recognize these eyes the moment they start to develop on the canvas. So Giorgio, thanks for being with us, and take it away.
Today I'm going to be painting this beautiful eyes on this portrait, and I shall be using, to start, a transparent smoke by Medea Comart, just to sketch in the darker parts. Okay, let's get started. I've checked the airbrush works, and this is this paint is very, very light, so we'll start with the dark areas, and always check your reference. I'm going into these shadows. At this point, you don't need to be too accurate. You just want to get the shapes, basic shapes, and don't forget to go in tighter when you're trying to make a fine detail. There. Under the eyes, and there's a shadow down the ridge of the nose, along the bottom of the nose, and this dark shadow, the nostril, around the edge, and there, down the nose again, and this dark shadow. Now, to get a sharp edge on the ridge there of the nose, use my trusted old art tool shield. Make sure it's in place, and spray away from the shield. Again with the shield, make those sharp. Get fine details as I'm going in. You need to get very close, get a few mil away from the canvas, and then you won't get too much overspray. And always go back. If you make mistakes, you can correct. Okay. This is going to be a black and white portrait, and after finishing with the smoke, I'll move on to a transparent black and then a pure black. And try not to use any white, and use the white of the canvas for highlights. Need some more paint. Always give the bottle a shake. few drops. People tend to overfill the cup. You just need a few drops. Now, I've gone over this a few times. That's the darkest this smoke will go. And you'll see there's a few creases from the eye. And there's a slight shadow there. You can go back from the canvas, give it a wider spray. At the moment I'm working mostly about 35mm from the surface and then go back for a wider spray to get a tone down. A very deep shadow here and across the top of the nose. And again going very close to, not over spray on the eyeball. Getting really tight now to get that. Dark edge on the side of the nose there. And then blend over the ridge. Stand back. If you're doing this sort of canvas work, it's always best to work standing so that you can you have more flexibility to move around. Again, to get a sharp edge is to go in a few mil away from the canvas and ease off with the pressure on the trigger. See some of these markings on the face there, the small marks. You can give the effect by just a small, just pull back gently, small dots. The image I transferred onto this round canvas using a projector, and I got a slight distortion, which I think adds to the image. When I project an image, I don't draw every detail in, because it can spoil your. When I'm painting, I just use the reference and eyeball. You get a nicer finished image. And then the eyeball, you just see that shadow there, look. And there's a slight shadow out, and get that really dark. And try and spray away. Just to move back to give a light spray there to show the cheekbone. And you've got this shadow just here, which drops down from the eye about there. If you look for, if you can do measurements, you can see that. Okay, there. And then follow that around. I like to move around on the canvas as well than just to work on one part of the image. So you get an overall impression. Let's get some of this darkened in. I'm just using, at this point, I'm just using a scalpel just to scratch away some of the the overspray. And if you go too heavy anyway, you can easily go back with the transparent smoke. The reason I'm using a transparent smoke to do a black and white portrait is so that you could use just a normal opaque black, but then it would be just stark and dark, and you wouldn't have any contrasts. As if you use this smoke, you get these nice cool greys, and then eventually to get the really dark parts, just going with a secondly I'll use a transparent black, and then to finish off an opaque black, and you'll get a nice contrast. And for highlights, use an opaque white. I would normally use a modeller's Fibreglass pen, but I can't locate it, unfortunately. But this will do the job. Go around this eyeball very close. Ease off with the pressure. You get very little overspray. There's a shadow on the top of the eyeball as well, as you can see. And break the line up. Don't make it a sharp. This edge, it's not a sharp. It's a ridge. It's broken with small, light sprays, little dots. Again, on the top of these. Again, it doesn't have to be a perfect line. And there's a small shadow there to give the eyeball, make it look 3D. It just comes a gentle shadow just round there and into the cornea. You can't see it on the photograph, but I'll put some in. Now you can see it's dark at the top, and it's slightly, there's not much light there, but I'm going to leave some to make it look more 3D. It's a reflection of light that goes into the eye and comes across at about 45 degrees, so we're saying it's coming down. And then get really in close to try and get that sharper. You can just do a very fine line off the reference mark I put on there and around this part. And there's some that come down. Don't make the mistake of making them too dark, and then it doesn't look right. And there's usually the darker with the light coming, it's lighter underneath on this, so it's darker on the top of the crease. I can show you with a scalpel. You can just go underneath there. I tend to work using high pressures because how I started in this airbrush business. I started with t-shirts, and to work on the t-shirt you need a high pressure to push the paint into the pigment, and I've got used to that. But for me, using high pressure makes the paint flow easier, but you need to be, it's more difficult to control the pressure on the lever. But the effect is good. Let's get some depth into this eye and balance it out. Red paint or pigment. Stand back. It's starting to tighten up. Let's concentrate on this eye. I find that the more I use this Evolution Airbrush, it's giving me good control and giving me some fine lines and some good cover. It's great. Again, I'm working very close to get this eyelashes, not eyelashes, the eye. Hang on. See, I'm going a bit too much paint. We can correct that anyway, it's not a problem. Sometimes I find on canvases, it may be the primer they use or to prime the canvases. Sometimes the paint just won't stick. It takes a few layers for it to get into the canvas and then dry. Getting really tight now to get this line under the eyeball. The shadow there. Follow that across the top, round. And then that one. Oh, another tip, always make sure you wipe the curves. You can forget, pick it up, put it on the canvas, and you'll get marks where you don't want them. It's quite dark under the eye there. Again, break up these creases. I'm just, when I put more pigment in, and then I'll just test that the airbrush, get a little piece of tissue and just test that it's flowing okay. There's no blockage and it's not spitting. And this is excellent. I mean, all this time, not one glitch with this airbrush. Superb. I'll use the curve again. Again, make sure it's clean. Just on this bit. There's a very sharp edge there, so I'll use the French curve. You always work very light. You can always correct things. That's why it's good to go in with opaque black. Because you can't rub out. Just sort of small markings there. These little marks there, these are tiny flaws in the canvas. It's the weave, but they'll add to the texture anyway. I'm just using the scalpel and bring back some of this. I can put opaque white at the end over this with brushes. We just bring this one back a little bit because it's nearly lost. Move down, get that, all these creases under the eye. And there's some little indentations on the side of the nose there, just with some small markings, very light, and at the top. Go back to the other side. I find always follow the form when you're painting. If you see like that shape, follow the shape instead of doing a backwards and forwards straight line. That you won't get that smooth contour. So follow the actual shape that you're spraying on, as you can see here. And that, if you're going at the top, you will be going like round. And up. Follow that crease round. See there, that's another. Follow that curve round. And this follows round even though you can't see it because it's such a dark shadow. And again, this side. Get it very tight there. Nice sharp crease. So follow the shape of it, and then come away with the airbrush and a wider spray. I find on this airbrush there's hardly any tip dry. It's quite amazing. Again, follow the contours of the nose. In very tight. Stand back a bit. Need to get this darker. Instead of a smooth spray, tend to do large dots from about 70mm away from the canvas. For smaller dots, just go in, move closer. It's just a quick way of getting some of the skin texture. Same here with the stubble. Same on this side. We'll go do the same on this side. It's good to stand back occasionally. You get a better picture of what you're doing. It's good. Ridge on the nose needs to be darker. And this side. When you're doing these very fine lines, is to ease off on the trigger, hardly any pressure, and keep very close to the canvas, about a couple of mil. The really nice thing about this airbrush is the cap. You can't really damage the needle, even if you get and touch the canvas. And I like the cap. It's less strain on your finger if you're working for a long time. Again, on this side, some small dots. Follow that across on the top of the eyebrow. Make sure to leave that light area. Again with a small marking. Quite a sharp crease here. I've changed to a transparent black with a come out and just go into the very dark areas. You should see there'll be a slight difference. You can see how much darker it is before. And the next step would be use the opaque black. Again, going tight on the, or very close. You can see the difference between the smoke and the black, transparent black. Just go over the black, dark areas. Getting really tight on these, a few mil away from the canvas. Break up the hard edge with a light spray. With the curve, so that I don't get any overspray on this bridge of the nose there. Again, instead of to get the skin pores, just some very light dots or markings. Follow some of these creases very close. Put some eyelashes there. I've now switched to a illustration, Creates illustration, opaque black. Fill some into the airbrush, put a couple of drops of water, give it a mix, and go back into the dark areas. This is the third and final stage to bring the really dark parts of the image using a pure opaque black, and you'll get the difference between where it's very black and you get a graduation into greys, as you can see there. It's subtle, but it makes it more of an interesting image. You can see how it blends into over the other greys, especially in these dark, sharp crevices. You see there how dark that is compared to you get 3 variations of black to grey. You can see here how much darker it is. So I'm going to go around the edge of the canvas and tone it down, I think. Right, now I'm using these model Fibreglass erasers. There's a 4mm one and a 2mm one. The 2mm one gives you a tighter rubbing surface. And start with bring back some of these highlights. If you rub out too much, you can always go back with a warm grey. If it looks too bright, then just go back over with some darker spray. There's a highlight here. For a broader stroke, use this one. This is the 4mm one, and you can wind it in and out, and use it flat as well. I'm wearing a glove because I tend to rub off the residue, and there's bits of fiberglass, so don't do it with your hands, or else you'll get little bits of fiberglass in your skin. And I'm doing this pretty quick for this demo, but otherwise you would be really taking your time. And as you can see, it also picks up the bite in the canvas. You get a little texture which adds to the overall effect, I think. Back in, I've cleaned the airbrush. I put some gone back to the transparent smoke. You go in some of the areas, and if you think you've gone too heavy with the scratching out, you can always tone it down with the transparent black. I'm just going to try and darken some of these areas with a bit more texture. The transparent smoke is too light, so where these are just that a bit darker, as you can see, rather than use the opaque black. I've got a fine brush and some just normal airbrush opaque white. Right, that's a wrap. So the end of this wonderful few hours I've spent doing this. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this, and ciao for now.
Wow, such an amazing subject to paint, such intensity, and this was always apparent in both his music and then also in later life when he also became a visual artist. His art was so striking and so individual and so cool, and I guess it's no accident that the album for which he might be best known for is titled The Birth of the Cool. So Giorgio, thank you for sharing this wonderful gentleman with us in this beautiful painting, and we hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and we hope to see you back next time. Thank you so much.